Thousands of restaurants still haven't recovered from the pandemic. A recent survey from Restaurants Canada suggests 4,000 restaurants are at risk of closing because of an upcoming deadline to pay back COVID-era loans to the federal government. During the pandemic, businesses were given up to $60,000 in loans. $20,000 of that money is supposed to be forgiven if the rest of the funds are paid back on time. The original deadline has already been extended twice, and the government has signaled it will not extend it again. The deadline to start paying it back is just over a week away. Kelly Higginson, President and CEO of Restaurants Canada, joins us now from Queen Street East. Hi, Kelly, and I understand you're outside of a restaurant that has just recently closed.
I am. I'm standing outside of a local restaurant, and interestingly enough, it happens to be in my neighborhood. So quite sad to see this another announcement of a closure last week.
I wonder what you're hearing from restaurant owners about this repayment deadline.
The deadline is looming. It's a really challenging time for this industry, as has been the last 4 years. But in particular, the last year they've been hit with more headwinds and volatility, with all of the inflationary pressures putting so much pressure on their ability to eke out a profit. So while we see busy restaurants and people interacting and having a good time because that's what restaurants bring to communities, the reality is behind the scenes that every aspect of operating a restaurant has become extraordinarily expensive in the last couple of years, and it is making this deadline even more frightening for most of our operators.
Sure, I mean, the rising cost of food alone, I mean, just regular people who don't have a restaurant are dealing with that all the time. Add that into business costs and rising inflation there. That is something they're dealing with. I wonder what they're seeing in terms of the customer base. Are they seeing people come back like they were before the pandemic?
Well, that's kind of one of the issues that we've been trying to discuss is the recovery period post-pandemic. It's not going to happen, just turn on a light switch and everything goes back to normal. So as you said, it's been a slow process to get things back to what we might consider a new normal. We've also got a guest base that's been hit with all of these inflationary pressures over the last year, and so they have less discretionary spending. So our operators are seeing it on both sides. They're seeing less spending on behalf of their guests, and they're really seeing the impact across all aspects of operating a small and medium-sized restaurant in this country.
So what do restaurant owners need? What can be done to support the industry?
We need more time. I mean, first and foremost, because this is looming over us in the coming weeks, week now, we need more time in order to continue the recovery process. We are hearing positive, I'm hopeful of that, reports that we're going to see interest rates come down. So maybe we will see some more discretionary spending in our customers' pockets, but we'll also see pressures ease for our operators who took out other loans, not just the CEBA loan, but they took on other debt over the last 4 years to try and make their business work, and they've been hit with these increases in interest rates. And we're seeing a little bit of easing in maybe some of the inflationary pressures. So with all of that, we are looking for some more time in order to see tourism come back and all of these aspects come together. But beyond that, we are asking for the government to look at ways that we can cut costs for businesses. So we've started a process of discussing the upcoming excise tax on alcohol. We've got a number of different tax requests in with the government to try and discuss how we can make business more profitable so our operators can start to see a profit again. We've got 53% of operators are reporting that they're operating at a loss or barely breaking even. And that number was 10% before the pandemic. So there is a significant issue in this country. It's going to affect communities from coast to coast to coast.
We mentioned you're outside of a restaurant in Toronto that's recently closed, the Brickworks Cider House on Queen Street East. I wondered locally what kind of pressures Toronto might be facing that might be unique, if there are any.
You know what, we're seeing this across the country. So I just read some data out of Halifax this morning. We're seeing, there is a reason why all 12 premiers across the country, they signed a letter asking for an extension from the federal government. I don't count 18 days an extension, so they had asked that this be extended another year. We've got all of the BIAs across the country that recognize the implications to their communities if we see more closures.
Kelly Higginson, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you.